Hey, thanks for joining the Weekend Rewind. Only rewinding a day to the Talk the Walk latest live stream I did with Alan Weiss, the rock star of consulting, on pricing. Are you undercharging and over delivering? That was what we were exploring today. So much to learn from Alan, and it was the first time I actually got some trivia right that he got wrong. In our 5 years of knowing each other, I've never had to correct Alan. Today was the first time, and he was very gracious around it as well. Enjoy the listen. Let me know what you took out of this episode, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Talk the walk with every sip and laugh. Coffee's the fuel, martini's the craft. Conversations swirling in the cool night air. Talk the walk, we're going somewhere.
Good morning, Alan.
Good evening, Leanne. No, it's morning for you, it's evening for me, right. Good evening.
It is evening for you. Have you got your martini there, or are you teetotaling this afternoon?
You know what? My wife's been out all day with the grandchildren, doing our grown grandchildren doing things, and I'm taking care of the dogs and taking care of people who come, and I forgot to pour my martini. And
That's okay.
you and I started talking, so I'll make up for it when I go out for dinner because she won't be with me at dinner either.
Lychee martini? Is that your drink of choice?
I had a lychee martini last night. The
Okay.
place I'll probably go tonight doesn't have them, and I can't make them myself. But last night, you have good feelings there. I did have a wonderful lychee martini.
Fantastic. And I'm having a nice coffee today. So welcome to Talk the Walk. Today we're looking at pricing. And Alan actually has a more provocative sentence about what today's topic is about. Alan, how has your week been? There's been, big news in the US that you've been hearing from every consultant in the world about.
Well, you mean about the market, about things,
Yeah.
the tariffs and things? Look, the people on Sunday, all over social media said that Monday will be the most historic drop in the history of the United States stock exchange, and it's things will collapse. And so Monday there was a 500-point drop, which is insignificant. Wasn't even a 5-day record. And then it dropped, I don't know what, 1,200 points, and then it went up 3,000 points. Hold on for the roller coaster, But you have to remember, we are investors, not traders. And so if you have good investments, keep them, and things will bounce back. If you try to day trade, you're going to get clobbered. And this is the importance we learned from the pandemic. You need to have cash ready so you're not desperate.
Yeah, and if you've got cash ready, you can also buy shares that are on sale at the moment as well. So, hey, if you're joining us live, let us know where you're joining us from. We'd love to hear from you, and let us know if you have any questions as well in chat. So the topic, how high performers price for impact. But really the question is, are you underpricing and over delivering? How common is this, Alan?
Oh, it's terribly common. I mean, it's almost the rule. I've been mentoring and coaching people, for 30 years, and almost everybody at one time or another is in this trap. And a lot of them think that they've escaped it, but they really haven't, because they're not comparing themselves to the right people. They're comparing themselves to people who do it even worse than they do. And this is a huge esteem issue. Point number one, it's a huge esteem issue. And people are doing it because they don't feel worthy. They feel like imposters. They don't appreciate their own value. And you've heard me say for years, the first sale is to yourself.
Okay, I've got a question on this. So you talked about it being like an esteem issue, which is a mindset issue. Then there's also sort of market reality. And I guess you've alluded to that in your response as well, because you've said people look to other people in terms of how to price. So they think that's the market reality. Can you just how do you know if you're actually undercharging or if you do just have low self-esteem? Like, how do you figure that out?
Well, first of all, the perception is reality. And so what you perceive is how you're going to act. That is what engenders your behavior. So what you believe will determine how you act. You might be accurate, you might be somewhat inaccurate, you might be completely wrong. So the best thing to do is to check that and see what empirical facts you can come up with that lead you one way or the other. But the esteem issue is critical because most people don't think they're as good as they are. They feel that they should be more modest. I hate these people who talk about, oh, you have to be humble. Humility. No, I have never seen a client scream for, I want a humble doctor. I want a humble accountant, a humble attorney. I want a humble consultant. I've never heard this ever. They want somebody who never loses. They want a surgeon who think he or she is God, right? So
Yeah.
humility is simply understanding the worth in others. It's not demeaning yourself. What's happened though, Leanne, is that with the pandemic, starting with the pandemic, and now the tremendous polarization we see, and now the political and economic turmoil, people's self-esteem is even lower because they feel they're not in control. So people fret and they talk about geopolitics. They talk about things they truly can't control. What they should talk about is things they can control. And in every economy, even in after 9/11, even when we had the Great Recession, in every economy, there are businesses that do well. And even in bad markets, there are companies that do well. So you have to have the perception, the reality that you have value to give and you can find these people.
Yeah, fantastic. I really like that as a bit of a pep talk for us as well. And we've got a global audience already that are joining us today. Hamali is joining us from Mumbai in India. It'd be quite late there. Thanks for joining us so late. MK from Brisbane. Miriam was at your session in Brisbane was a few years ago. Alan, great to have you here, MK.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And yeah, it is. And Rich is joining us from Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Thanks so much. And let us know what questions you have in chat as well. Plus, we've got Africa representation.
International. Internet. Mumbai used to be, Mumbai was Bombay, right? At one time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Last time I was in Mumbai was in 2019. Suma from Jambo from Mombasa in Kenya. I've been to Tanzania, not Kenya. Have you been to Kenya, Alan?
I have not been to Kenya. What's the capital? Kinshasa? Do I have that right?
Nairobi.
Nairobi, Kenya.
Yeah.
Good. Learn something.
That's the first time I've ever corrected you on anything. And I hope that I'm right. Now I'm like, oh, maybe Alan's right. Now this is
Kinshasa must be Tanzania or something. We have to. Okay, go ahead.
Akusha. I think it's anyway. I will go ahead. But let's talk about before. I'm going to hide this prompt here because I want to ask you about that. Because Alan, your brand is you're pretty intelligent. You're very intelligent. You get things right. You know a lot about everything. And so when you say something with confidence, like that's the capital of Kenya, it makes me question maybe I'm wrong. Let's talk about that for a second. That confidence that you have and how you built that.
Right, but that's an esteem issue, isn't it? Right? So
yeah.
I know most capitals, not all of them, but I know most. So no matter who I get as an Uber driver, because they're usually not Americans, they usually come here and to make a new career. I had an Ethiopian woman and I said, oh, Addis Ababa. And she said, no Americans know that. She said, a lot of Ethiopians don't know that, she says to me. So I find they're great conversation starters, but I also find that you're better off taking an intelligent guess if you're not sure than avoiding the issue.
Oh, really? An intelligent guess, and just say and saying it with confidence, like with a full stop, not an inflection.
Oh no, you don't want to uptalk. A lot of women uptalk, and they end the sentences like this. You should never do that. You end a sentence like this, lower. And when you speak with confidence, that's half the game, especially when you're talking about consulting. You say, look, people aren't leaving your company. They're leaving managers here. That's what you have to look at. When I say something like that, nobody sits around and says, let's see, is he right? Can we look that up? Can we do chat GPT? No, they say, well, what do we do about that? And I say, let's find out who those managers are.
Yeah, it's that easy. Hey, just on this point around market reality, right? So again, you alluded to because I used to price, because I was an internal employee, and I knew what we were paying external consultants. And so I thought that was the market rate. And so when I went out on my own, I would charge that. But that was the wrong reality. And then, then I started talking to other consultants, people in your world who were charging like 25, 50K for strategy and going, okay, my day rate at the time was like $1,500 a day. Like, let's be honest. So it's actually, picking people or finding the circles where people are doing things a bit differently and giving you that, just that reality check.
So since you joined my community, have your fees gone up?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
See, that's what you're talking about. You have to be careful who you hang out with. And if you're going to go from poverty to abundance, scarcity to abundance, you have to make key changes. One change is you have to add constantly new friends because your old friends are still thinking the old way. And when Marshall Goldsmith and I wrote Life Storming together, we had a little disagreement about this. He said, I have childhood friends still. I said, I'm sure you do. Have you developed new friends? He said, well, yeah. So you have to continue to develop people who will challenge you more and more.
Yeah. Let's talk about this because, and you've got a very different idea around budgets, and I'd love you to define that, because a lot of people, like, there's two different schools of thought here. Do you ask the client what their budget is, or do you then dictate terms? Like, where do you sit on that?
Well, what you should ask the client is, do you control the investment if we go forward? That's the phrase. And so if the client says, I don't, you're not talking to a buyer, so get out of there. Get introduced to the buyer. If the client says, I do, and I say, okay, so no one else has to approve this. Client says, no. I say, fine, okay, let's move forward. But I want to know if the control of the money is there. But a budget is a predetermined amount of money put against a certain kind of project or endeavor or expectation. But budgets and money are two different things. Money go into budgets, right? Money goes into budgets. However, buyers, and this is why a true buyer is important, can move money. And so when somebody says to me, we have no budget, I'm saying, sure you don't. Why would you budget for me when you never even heard of me before 2 weeks ago? You wouldn't budget for me. But what if I told you that you have money in other budgets that if you gave to me would give you a far greater return? Now, the only thing they can say is, how would that happen? They're not going to say, I don't believe you. They're not going to say, no, it wouldn't. They're going to say, tell me how that would happen.
It's such an interesting point, because you can even take it to an individual level. Like, say I'm, started off the year and I see something online about like some professional development that I think, oh, that would be really good. It's not like I've budgeted for that. It's like, oh, that's an opportunity. I feel like that would be a great thing to do. So I'll allocate my money to do it. And it's the same in business, right? I like that idea that you don't know.
Think about it. I mean, how many people pass up great opportunities and budget for it? I mean, I've had people tell me, I was doing some magnificent public program at a reasonable amount of money. It would help them tremendously. And they said, Alan, I'd love to go, but I didn't budget for it. Well, find the money, borrow the money, steal the money. I don't care. But are you going to deprive yourself because you don't have a budget for it? I know people very well who I would say to my wife, are they going to come with us to Italy? And my wife will say, I know they're coming. I say, how do you know? She says it's in their budget. I mean, if somebody said to us, you want to go to Italy unexpectedly? I would say, yeah, we'll find the money.
Totally. I'm with you on that. Totally. And I just want to say, Suma has responded. I just want to put this out loud. The capital is Nairobi. So I just want to thank you. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Now let's talk about, I want to talk about something you bring up. You connect value and brand.
Yeah.
Right. So talk through that relationship between those two things.
Well, I can give you all the academic definitions, but a brand is how people think about you when you're not around. And a brand creates an emotional bond. I work with Alan Weiss. I work with Leanne Hughes. I drive a Bentley. You don't need a Bentley for transportation, but people like to be part of that particular club. And so when you have a powerful brand, people think about you. And the brand need only be powerful in your public square. I can walk down the street here in East Greenwich and not be arrested, even if I steal something. But in the consulting community, you cannot not know who I am. So consequently, your brand power will deliver people to you who are pre-convinced that they want to do business with you. And brands are largely promoted through evangelism. People saying, hey, listen, you got to work with Leanne. And since they're a third party, they're even more credible.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's a really strong link there. It's much easier to, well, you don't really need to sell then when you've got a strong brand, because you're attracting interest your way.
That's exactly right. I just did a workshop this week on how to get unsolicited referrals. It sounds like an oxymoron, but you can do this.
Yeah, lovely. Now, I think that on the flip side of that, you got a strong brand, so you attract things. Then there's also like a brand that attracts discount vibes. I think I've heard you use this phrase where someone in your community, it might have even been me a few years ago, but like clients are just asking me for discounts, and you're giving off discount vibes. What does that look like, sound like?
Well, this is, again, this has to do with self-esteem. So the client says to you, or the prospect says to you, look, I know we planned for an hour, but I can only give you 40 minutes. Okay. You say, okay. The prospect says, I know we said Tuesday morning, but can we move it to Tuesday afternoon? You say, okay. You're finally meeting, somebody interrupts the meeting, and the prospect takes the call or looks at the email or looks at the text message. When you accept all that, you are giving off vibes of compromise, vibes of surrender, vibes of submission, instead of saying, I'm not available on that day. Instead of saying, excuse me, if you need to be interrupted, maybe we should reschedule this. You have to stand up for yourself, because it's quite natural, if you give in on all that you'll give in on price.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so these are like the micro sort of behaviors that then lead to that. Oh, they're pretty flexible and they will surrender. Got Lisa here. Met Lisa in Vegas. Fantastic. Great to see you. Lisa asks, can you probe a bit more about assessing market realities? Given the volatility of the US economy, some feel the need to hold on spending. What are factors that point to a real shift in the market for high consulting fees? How do we raise the urgency in this market?
Okay, so Lisa, long time no see. She was in that workshop I just talked about. Um,
Okay.
the U.S. economy and the world economy is going to be volatile for a long, long time. This is why I trademarked the phrase "no normal." So we have to accept volatility and disruption as something we face every day, up, down, sideways. So the factors that point to a shift in the market for high consulting fees uh, are that people are more uncertain than ever. Leaders don't even know how to manage uh, virtual teams, hybrid workforces, and so the confusion is significant. And there are a lot of crazy theories out there about what leaders should do. And if you don't believe that, just read LinkedIn one morning. I mean, my God. So uh, I know we're on it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
the fact is that when there's confusion, people need help more than ever. What we have to concentrate on, and what Lisa really prompts here, is that don't go after remedial work. Go after companies that are doing well and want to do still better and are used to investing in themselves.
Yeah.
And those are the people who will pay you because they appreciate the guidance. And that's going to exist and has existed forever. You know, I lost no clients during 9/11. Nobody wanted their money back. I lost no clients during the pandemic. Nobody wanted their money back. Some of them delayed things, but they
Yeah.
all realized that they knew they needed help. So I think what you have to look at is your native strength, your native talents, combined with the needs that you can create among prospects so that you are the breakthrough alternative.
I think that's a really powerful thing. How do you do that really quickly? Is it possible?
It's more possible than ever because we have all these media. You know, I mean, I have
Yeah.
a minute with Alan on what is it, X, every day. I have weekly stuff. I have monthly stuff. I have video, audio, text. It was calculated. I have 1,800 hits in my public square annually. 1,800, and so maybe you're not as prolific as I am. So you have 900. But that's how you do it. We don't need PR firms. We don't need
Yeah.
sophisticated electronics. What we need is intent. What we need is volition. And this is why self-esteem is so important. People won't write a sentence without second guessing themselves. They won't tell a prospect something without second guessing themselves. That
Yeah.
ruins the whole equation.
Yeah, it really is the underpinning thing here. Now, I've got a question for you because this has happened to me earlier this year. This was for a speech where the feedback was that I had quoted too high. Like they had budget, like everyone else had quoted at this rate. I didn't get the gig. Now that I'm listening to you, it maybe is a branding issue. But I mean, is that a good thing that I lost the work?
How often did this happen to you?
Like that was once this year.
Disregard it.
Okay.
Yeah, never react to a one-off. And here's the thing. If you tell me this happened 5 times to me within 2 months, then it's you, right? Then it's you. If it happened once or twice a year, it's the other person. They're making a bad decision. You have to forget about it. If you react to it, you can make your future worse.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Because I was lamenting it. You're like, oh, you know what? You know, it would have been good. Da, da, da. But
Yeah, there's the humble bit. Stop it.
oh, but how do you stop it? I mean, there's other people here that are like would be quite similar. Like we don't have your we don't have your level of I'm a pretty confident person, like no doubt about it. But
I think
you're
you
on
are.
like your black belt
I'm
confidence.
black belt confident. I like
Yeah,
it.
black
That's
belt.
rock star consulting. I like that.
Black belt.
Black
Ooh,
belt.
karate chop. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the over delivery hangover. So you get the job. And then you're like, you're in there and you're like, they need help with this, this, this. I'm just going to throw free advice. I'm going to like help out with other things. How do we stop doing that? And when do we recognize actually that we're doing it? Because we all want to be helpful.
Okay, I'm going to read some things real quickly. Okay, it'll take me 90 seconds, but I want to make sure I cover this. And this prompted it. Okay, so the first thing is I talked about having low esteem. You have to overcome your low esteem here, thinking you're not worthy. A second thing is we allowed the client to dictate how we consult or coach or interact. The client will say, I think we need 2 weeks of coaching. The client will say, why don't we have 3 workshops? And we're so desperate for the business because we're afraid we won't get the business that we agree. Worst thing in the world. Number 3, we make undocumented promises. This is very subtle. It means that the things are not in our proposal, but somebody in the company, as we're working, says, hey, listen, Leanne, while you're here, would you mind talking to this person? We got a candidate coming in. Could you give us an evaluation? Would you mind doing the windows when you're done? And we say, well, we don't want to lose this. We don't want them to go to my buyer and say, I asked a simple thing and she wouldn't do it. So these undocumented promises kill us and they undermine our margins. We do failure work from the client. So the client's people, my proposals have joint accountabilities. The client's people don't work up to their accountabilities, so we do them. That's failure work. Again, it erodes the margin. It's too much work for too little money. We don't provide monetized value in the proposals. I am tired of looking at value that says we'll have better alignment. We'll communicate on a higher level. We'll be able to look each other in the eye. I don't care. That doesn't mean the business improves. You have to monetize value. You have to be, too many people are afraid of metrics. They're afraid to put measures on things so the client and you can see that we're making progress. But metrics save the day because they are empirical proof. And then finally, we mistakenly think that lowering our fees and overworking, over-delivering creates more potential business with the client. It doesn't. It sets the wrong standards. And no client ever said, please raise your fees. The client says, well, you did the pilot for this. Why can't you do the rest of your work for this? And then we got a problem. So the good news is we're responsible. We can fix the problem. The bad news is we get into this rut and we're afraid to fix the problem.
We do. And is it those clients where you've realized you've charged too little? Is it possible to go back to them and reposition it? Or you just like, right, I'll just start with a blank slate with a brand new client and start at a different level
both.
there?
What you should do is go back to that client and offer more value so you can get more revenue. You should never say, how can I make more money? What you have to say is, how can I create more value? That's what will create more revenue. So you can always do that because what's the downside? The client says no, but there's a significant upside if you get that. But you're right, for all prospects, that's how your conversation has to go. We have 3 options. You're going to get a 10-to-1 return on the least of the options.
Yes, got that. And maybe Alan, share like the book that if there is a book that you think would be helpful when people are pricing, and I think maybe around monetizing value. I think the Consulting Bible has a bit about that. A lot of your books talk about how you monetize the value.
Well, the Consulting Bible is in its 2nd or 3rd edition, but also Value-Based Fees is in its 3rd or 4th edition. And Value-Based Fees covers that in detail.
Yeah, fantastic. I just want to share some comments here. So Dee Dee's joining us from Cape Town. And she said her best dollars are spent on personal development and growth. Fantastic. Suma, Leanne, thank you for not butchering my name. I'm honestly amazed, especially considering that even people from my own country still struggle to pronounce it. That's lovely. And thank you, Alan, for bringing up the issue of second guessing ourselves. That really resonated with me. I've always struggled with self-doubt, especially when it comes to pricing. Suma, you're not alone. This is why we're having this session today as well. So what do people do if someone watching this knows they're undercharging? What do they do? Do they think about improving their self-esteem? Do they try to find new peers and colleagues and find out what they price at? What's their next
Before
step?
I answer this question, Dee Dee was from she happens to be in South Africa, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You tell me if this is true or not. South Africa has 3 capitals.
I don't think that's true.
It is.
Okay, Suma, please fact check for us. Is it?
Cape Town, Pretoria, and a city named Bloemfontein or something. I guess it's Dutch. One's judicial, one's administrative, one's political. So
that is so interesting.
Yeah,
but that's like having 2 different managers in an organization, isn't it?
But see how that boom. Okay, now if someone's watching this and they're undercharging, what's the next best move? Stop it. Yeah. And if you want that reinforced, hang out with people who will help you to get out of that rut. And the best thing is public accountability. So, I have growth cycles in my community and everything. So if you're going to announce, listen, I am never going to underprice again, and here's how I'm going to do it. And you say, I'm turning in a proposal next week. Then you have to face this group again. And they say, what did you do? How did that happen? How did that take place? So the good news, bad news is that it's our own accountability that will change this. And we have to stop looking for affection and look for respect. We have to stop wanting to be loved and instead get business.
Yeah. Hey, I'm with you on this, and I think it is the underpinning thing. Um, you know, I've got this, a community. I do see patterns and trends from time to time, really around. So a question that's come in recently is around when I charge for work, how do I include travel as part of that, my expenses? And I remember because I would use that format of like charging for travel, and then I started, value based fees, and it wasn't even an issue. Can you define that? It's a very vague
Well,
question for me, but
I tell clients in my proposal that expenses will be charged as actually accrued and are due at the end of each month upon presentation of my invoice. So
yeah,
if I'm traveling domestically, I travel first class, but I charge the client what the client's policy is for employees, and I
yes,
subsidize the
yeah,
difference. If I'm traveling internationally, I only fly first class, but I charge for business class, and I make up the difference. And as you're pointing out,
nice.
value-based fees are so high, making up the difference is nothing. I mean, I stay in Four Seasons and Peninsulas and so forth. What's it? The Park Hyatt down on the rocks is one of my favorite places in Australia, in Sydney. So, but I charge the client Marriott rates. So when you're charging
Oh,
value-based fees, you can make up the difference. So the client's not saying, "Oh my God, why are you staying here?" The client's okay, great, that's fine.
yeah, I like that. I like that as an idea because you can then, yeah, as in booking it yourself, but you've got the fairness and transparency of their current process anyway, so you're not really taking advantage of that. The other
No,
thing is around day rate pricing and escaping that. And is it really about the economic buyer that you've got to get talked to? Because a lot of, that still is going around the whole day rate pricing, hourly
well,
pricing even.
first of all, if it's a day rate price and it's an extended project or it's advisory work, extended advisory work, what you want to tell the client is, look, there's no meter running here because that doesn't serve you. And so that is much less expensive, much more impactful. So I don't charge by the day. And somebody says, well, my lawyer charges by the hour. I say, right. And that's why lawyers do law, but they don't know anything about pricing. Uh, but if you're just doing a deliverable for a day,
Yeah.
you don't have a day right. You simply have a right for the rate for the deliverable. So,
Mm,
my keynote speech is
yeah.
$32,000, right? $35,000.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a full day, it's going to be somewhat more than that, depending upon the circumstances. But that's the fee. And
Yeah.
when the client said, here's a question asked me, an answer to a question asked. When any client says to me, prospect, how did you arrive at that number? I say, it represents a dramatic return on investment for you and equitable compensation for me. And that's how partners act.
That's awesome. Now, when do I get to start charging 35,000 for a keynote?
When people
Yes.
recognize you as having written X number of books, contributed Y number of IP, and worked with Z number of companies. That's the public square.
Ah, that's nice.
You know how I got
XYZ.
to 35, Leanne? I was on stage before a consulting convention, and somebody says, "What's your speaking rate?" And I said 35,000. When I walked off stage, my wife says, "Your rate is 25,000. When'd you change it?" I said, "Just then I realized it was too low."
Just gave yourself a 10K pay rise in 20 seconds.
That's why I have no boss. Most
Yeah.
people go out on their own, have a worse boss. I went out on my own when I got fired. I have a better boss.
We have a better boss. That's awesome. Suma, it's fact checking. South Africa does have 3 cities that serve as capitals. You're totally right.
This one.
Yes.
He didn't trust me on this one.
We are one all. We are one all today. Hey, Alan, it's so great being here. And if you have any final thoughts or comments, we'd love you to share what's one thing that you picked up from today's Talk the Walk. Alan, everyone can connect with you on LinkedIn, obviously, follow you on YouTube, get your Monday morning memo. Anywhere else we should send those that are listening or watching?
Well, watch A Minute with Alan, which is on every weekday on X, which I get a lot of feedback from. A Monday morning memo is tremendously popular, a lot of feedback. I'd also tell you that AI, Alan Intelligence, is now on my website, alanweiss.com. And you have to pay for. It's membership, but it's a lifetime membership when you pay for it. And you can ask it any question. It will give you a narrative answer in my words. It will give you the resources to download. And it will even turn to certain pages in my books and say, here's your answer. You can't beat that.
That is really cool. I just want to share one thing I've got that I've started is a new newsletter called Work Fame. And so just search Leanne Hughes Work Fame or find it on my LinkedIn. It's linked there. I'd love you to join that community. Final question from MK. Alan, on metrics, how do I turn finding alignment into a monetized statement? It's my biggest fail.
Okay, so Marianne, this is a great question, and here's how you do it. You might want to take a note. It's complicated. When somebody says my objective is to find alignment among my people, you ask this question: why? And when you ask why enough, you will get to their real business answer. Why do you want alignment? Well, because we're not all acting in concert with each other. And why is that? What does that mean to you? Why is that important? Well, because we're duplicating effort with clients and we're losing money. How much money? Ask why.
I love that. So good. Thanks, MK, for asking that question, for being here nice and early on Friday morning. DD reckons this is our best one ever. Thank you so much. Alan, it's always a joy. Thank you so much for talking the walk with me today. And we look forward to seeing everyone on the next one. We'll chat to you soon.
Thank you.